Hi, welcome back to Moose in Chemistry. This is the lesson on intensive and extensive properties of matter. Now, matter, as you know, is anything that takes up space and has mass, right? So when we look at the properties of matter itself, properties are going to have one or two properties, matters. Extensive properties depend upon the amount of matter, where intensive properties do not depend upon the amount of matter. So let's look at mass. Okay, now mass itself is an extensive property, right? How much of a substance that we have is its mass, right? So mass is affected by the amount of matter, so therefore it is extensive property. Volume in the same respect. Whether you have 50 milliliters of dihydrogen monoxide in a graduated cylinder or 30 milliliters of dihydrogen monoxide in a graduated cylinder, that amount is different from the other one. And so the amount of water that we have and we measure does depend upon the amount of matter. So extensive properties it is. The amount of energy. Well, how much output a particular battery puts out. If you have a 9-volt battery versus a 1.5-volt battery, obviously you have more stored energy in the 9-volt battery than you do the 1.5-volt battery. So therefore, the amount of energy is greater in the 9-volt battery, even though that battery itself might be smaller. The amount of electrons stored in that particular battery does depend upon the amount of material to generate electricity. So the amount of energy is an extensive property. All right, intensive properties do not depend upon the amount of matter. Electroconductivity, guys, hey, think about this for a second. Whether you have 10 volts or 100 volts, it's still going to flow through the wire, right? So electroconductivity, nope, it's definitely intensive. Color, hey, think about this. You've got a pattern or like a splotch of cloth, and one is 1 cubic centimeter in size and one is 1 meter in size. Hey, it doesn't matter whether it's cubic centimeter size or meter size, it's going to be the same thing. It's still going to be red, for example. All right? Temperature. Temperature, on the other hand, also doesn't depend upon the amount of matter. So therefore, temperature is not an extensive property, but it is an intensive property. Density. Well, you can have a cube of steel that's 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter, and another cube of steel that's 1 meter by 1 meter. But when you weigh them, they're going to come out and displace the same amount of water, right? So therefore, the density does not depend upon the amount of matter. Last but not least, solubility. If you had one salt crystal, then you had like 1,000 salt crystals, which one's going to dissolve better in a substance? Well, salt will dissolve with different amounts of fluid to put them in. Like, for example, 1 crystal in a gallon or 2 crystals in a gallon, they both will dissolve. So the fact that you had a gallon of dihydrogen monoxide to dissolve 2 salt crystals doesn't really matter. So solubility itself is not an extensive property, it's an intensive property. Well, that's it for this lesson, guys. You be snarly, and we'll see you back here at Moose in Chemistry.